is the career personal development based upon social emotional, and we're calling it wellness. We were saying social emotional learning concepts. Images, the bottom line is that it assists the individuals to discover the who am I in them and provides them with 5 keys to success, which are the essential skills. And the way in which I that came up with the essential skills, I actually I was managing a residential treatment center, and most of the young ladies in there were there because side. And they were very wealthy, and they were not, people always want to say, oh, they were underprivileged, they were underserved. No, they weren't. They were very wealthy. And what happened is that we had to provide some type of programming to them. And so I decided to test images on them. They got the who am I, they stopped cutting, they stopped wanting to kill each other and me and whomever else. And I wanted feedback. And so I asked for the feedback. And they said, Miss Helen, it's okay, but you're an African American woman. You were born and raised in Chicago. You lived all over the United States. You're an attorney. You were an administrative law judge at one point. And you're here managing a residential treatment center in rural Nebraska. We want to know that. How do you do that? And I'm like, how do you do what? How do you get from this point to that point? So what they were talking about from concept to implementation, basically. So I came up with something very short because it had to be no more than 5 fingers. They're not going to be able to do more because that was just their mindset. And so those would be the concepts that Images would supply. Images has an in-class kind of lesson, but it also has what I call living labs, and I don't call them field trips. The living labs, and every time I do Images, I forage the community. It's almost like the concept, the foraging part of Whole Foods. What they do, they always go out and see who has product or whatever, and they bring it and they put it on the shelf. Well, what I always do is go out into the community and broker relationships with the bakery, with the mayor, the schools, the whatever, so that people, the banks, so that when we have our living labs, what you kind of experienced in Images, now you get to experience perhaps in that living lab when you're at the local, I think it's Mike Winters, I think that's his last name, radio program, and he takes you inside. Somewhere inside of you, you may have a bubble wrap moment. And at that point, you're discovering the who am I in you. I don't tell you who it is. You don't know who it is. You don't know what it might be. And so you're able to discover that. And that is the getting away from that sitting there on your phone, because I found that the young people, as well as anybody, if you can engage them around and in their community outside of the phone and what have you, you have a connectivity that they become interested in. That's why you still have young people that play sports. They still play it, and they will bounce that basketball and play soccer and whatever else until the end, volleyball if they're interested. And so the Images program, I have a book. It's sold on Amazon. It was very successful. It was implemented in the Omaha Public Schools District, and they actually charted the success. And they gave me young people that were chronically truant from the 3rd grade, and they were supposed to be in the 7th, 8th grade. I did all young ladies. And these young ladies, I can be proud to say because that was from 2007 to 2013. And then I did workshops in between. The young ladies who actually graduated from Images, I understand that most of them, except for one of them, and nothing wrong with being a housewife, but all of them are professional ladies with their own businesses or in corporate America. They're lawyers. Some of them have gone on to be doctors, and these people were chronically truant. And the other part that Ferdy hasn't talked about is his program. Our programs, while we engage you in digital literacy, yes, you have to know that. I mean, we don't want you behind. You're going to have to be able to access your doctor's appointment. And a lot of stuff with parenting. If you don't know how to get to the parent portal, your child can tell you anything, and you can actually, a lot of places, you can trace what assignment is due. So you can get ahead of the curve. The other thing with mental health, not only the mobile thing, because somebody may be embarrassed with this big, the mobile person coming, hi, there is digital mental health. And I will tell you that during COVID, I worked for the state of New Mexico, as well as I was the president of the Roswell Commission on Aging. And during COVID, I worked as a youth transition specialist with CYFD. And I had young people that were transitioning out of foster care during COVID. And the state wasn't saying, oh, hi, you were transitioning out. And if your foster parents said bye bye, it was bye bye. And then now you're an adult, but they're still treating you like a foster child. So that, whatever was happening, that was probably one of the most trying times of my life, in that I had several of my young people who were badly harmed, and one even passed. And what happened when that person passed, that young lady, and there are no young people that have the name of Clara that I met. My grandmother was named Clara, and I had a young lady who was on my caseload that had my grandmother's same first name, right? And she actually was badly beaten they flew her to an outside, because we didn't have a lot of room. This is, like you said, mental health in Roswell. We don't have the capacity. They flew out to another state. She was badly harmed. She was in a coma. And what happens if you pass without any type of health, um, any type of health, um, uh, uh, I can't even call it directive. It's called a health directive. You pass without a health directive and you're single, you have no children, everything reverts back to your parents. And the people that had abused her, it reverted back to them. And she was on life support, and they said, pull the plug. I cried like a baby, and I had a flyer that was attached to one of the emails that talked about telehealth mental health. And I reached out. And I can personally tell others that, but for that once a week for 4 weeks, because I could have gone longer, but after 4 weeks, I'm like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. I'm gonna stop crying on your shoulder, but I'm fine. I don't know what I would have done, because there was no way I was calling my parents and my friends in COVID long distance. Yeah. They didn't want to hear that. Nobody, we were trying to survive. So I would encourage community and schools and Roswell Independent School District to really um, think outside the box. I understand that we have, what they call best practices, but there are things called promise practices and then evidence-based practices. And at this point in time, probably what Ferdy and I would be doing would be called promise practices. And after we run it through you all, it would become evidence-based, because we would have it documented again. So I don't, and the book, I actually provided my book to the superintendent, and principals at probably 8 schools, including University High. So they're familiar with. I mean, at least it won't be the first time it's been pitched to them, as far as images. And they found it interesting, but it never, but maybe such a time as this.